trap business, from your legitimate business. Why do you think all you see the vendors here all have something that they can show, something that they're not supposed to show? Sweatshirts, t-shirts, apparel, lighters, trays, flour, drinks, concentrates. He's going to give you some real quick inside tricks to make sure you get through that. He's got updates as far as the new legislation has come out, the bill that the House just passed. Hopefully it gets through to the Senate because that's been a long time overdue. Does anybody know, and we could do a raffle with this one, whoever get this answer right. What's the most important thing that's going to happen if that bill gets passed through the Senate?
A raffle means free shit. If you don't know what a raffle is, you get this right. It's free shit.
What's the most? First of all, how many people know that the Senate, the House of Representatives, passed a bill to decriminalize and remove marijuana cannabis from Schedule 1? Everybody understand what Schedule 1 is? Yeah. All right. Now, as long as everybody understand what Schedule 1 is, that's perfect. Understanding now what cannabis being removed from that allows banks to give you loans to do cannabis business. This allows you to have storefronts. It means now you can start filing shit on your taxes and be entrepreneurial. You really level up with it. So, introduce my friend Daniel, because he didn't get that proper introduction. Now that's how it goes.
All right.
He got some keys. You trying to secure the bag.
That's what you're trying to say. Let it on me.
I love you. I'm thankful for my partner. Come over here, pretty girl. Listen, we always run with our hands off. These are the Kush groups for everybody want to know. The people behind the page, watch us for events, see good bills. Can't get no better barber with a whole portfolio of businesses. Somebody like Daniel, who wants to, make sure that inroads are made between people of color and this fucking business. I see you play. I see you play. People like Daniel, when they say how you make your inroads to help people who don't look like you, give him consulting. I'm not saying he's giving out free consulting, but he may have done that before. So if you have something, if you got an idea, if you got a proposal, this is the type of person you want to pitch to. That being said, did anybody answer that question? One question was, what's the most important thing that happens when marijuana is removed from the Schedule 1? I asked that question. What's your name, son? Or your alias? You give us your alias.
It's federally legal, so you can bank.
So when you do a raffle, you're going to get a Kush Creeps goodie bag. Make sure you see me at that back table. Thank you so much. All right, now. Let's do another raffle. We're going to get straight to it. Everybody see T Good Meals is sponsoring that turkey? That hot turkey? Everybody got their raffle tickets out? The infused turkey will be delivered to you on or around Thanksgiving. That should be real fun to get to your folks. All right. Last two digits are 10. 10? Last two digits are 22. 22 for the hot turkey. Take that bad boy. So y'all listen. We say 7-11. We mean 7-11. That goes straight right there. Last two digits 34. 34. Nobody?
Hey, Sean, I ain't getting no ticket. I ain't gonna give me a ticket. Let's draw again.
We're gonna do some trivia.
You said 34?
It's okay. What's your name? Wesley. We're thankful to have you join us today. Thank you so much. Make sure to get your contact information on our page for that infamous turkey for your holiday. Thank you for playing. Thank you for coming, Wesley. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I'm going to give it up to my friend Daniel now. Daniel's pronouns are they, them, and their. If you don't understand that, ask me. Because if you misidentified, you're going to have to talk with me. All right. And I just did it right there as I said it. But I'm a person that's cognizant to know that that's what I'm working on. So I'm going to be respectful. Daniel, Cappy.
Well, really, accounting is the worst. It's right up there with dentists, and they at least give you nitrous. So that's why we can only talk about accounting at places that you can smoke. Otherwise, no one's gonna listen. I know, it's my day job. So I've been doing cannabis bookkeeping, cannabis accounting since I had my own grow in East Bay. If you know East Bay, where the growers are, you probably know where I was growing. But since then, I joined a above-board bookkeeping company that has been doing this in Colorado, Oregon, California, and now it's back in our backyard. So it's good to be home. It's good to be doing this where there's at least an effort for social equity. And I got 3 buckets of things that I can talk about with a Q&A if anybody wants to push on it. The first bucket is how to detect snake oil consultants. Because right now everybody's out there with their hands out, whether it's for like a $30 or $300 seminar around town. The second is on how the corporations are trying to subvert the social equity applications of the provisions in the bill. And that's just dirty, probably make you angry. Makes me angry every time I think about it. And the third is on what Chantel was saying about having plant adjacent companies and what that's like for banking, what that's like for your taxes. So on the first bucket, hold on a second, public speaking, you know, I'm usually in the back room. All right.
What about the Motley Fool?
That's good for investing, I guess. But,
What about pitching to them?
I'll definitely get to that in the Q&A.
Okay.
So lie number 1 that you can hear and know to turn around and run in the other direction is if you're going for a license, you know someone that's going for a license, and they've been told to go for an LLC or an S Corp. The person they're talking to doesn't know what they're talking about from an accounting perspective. None of this is legal advice, this is accounting advice. Those are pass-through companies. And the 280E provisions of any licensed entity means that you can't deduct your expenses like marketing. You can't deduct most of your expenses like payroll. You can't deduct advertising or your website or so much, which means there's all phantom income. 30% more is going to show up on your personal tax bill that you're going to be liable for, and that's still the prevailing wisdom. Like, I was just on a call with an attorney who has helped set up 300 licensed entities as LLCs around the country because he's being bought by hedge funds that don't care and aren't going to pay their taxes anyway. And that's why you might see articles out there about a tsunami of audits that are going to come from people who are doing licenses. If you're not doing a license, lie number 2, Form 8300. If they ever tell you got to start filing Form 8300, this is something that's for licensees and non-licensees. If you ever get more than $10,000 over the course of a year, they might know that you're supposed to file Form 8300. This is a good shit test question you can ask them. You say, so once a year, once I crack that $10,000 threshold, that's when I file? Or do I file it at the end of the year? The answer is neither. First time, not in a calendar year, but in a 12-month period, you cross $10,000 with someone from one entity, that's when you're supposed to file. And then every other time you get a payment from them, you're supposed to file another 8,300 within that same 12-month period. It's ridiculous.
You get caught up
The
like
third
that.
lie that you can know you're dealing with the snake oil is if they tell you that you can have a license holding entity and a staffing company. California's been particularly cracking down on this. They've been saying that any accountant or attorney that gives this advice is now behaving in fraudulent practices and is going to be just as liable as whoever it is that conducts the action. A lot of the laws are written not about workers, which can be contractors or employees or temporary an employee of the licensed entity in order to be handling whatever it is that's going on inside the business, especially in California where it's like, and when we get delivery legal here in Illinois, it's probably going to be the same, where it has to be an employee of the delivery company that is making the delivery. Alright, have I lost everyone? Because if I lost some of you, it's cool if you were like, this would be a great time to go smoke, get some more drink, check out the fight. For real. The second section of big old second bucket that I was saying of like how social equity provisions are being subverted. Is there anyone interested in this?
Yes. Keep going.
Is anyone disinterested in it?
I don't care.
All right, cool. So the first tactic that they're using, and this is something I've been hearing at the conferences I go to, is actually have people approach the firm, asking if we can do this. I'm like, oh, you're one of them. Is where they're decoupling ownership from decision making. You might have heard that it's got to be 51% ownership in order to qualify for a social equity license. And so they're doing these mechanics inside the bylaws in order to have it so that the shareholders are not going to be the deciders of the company. That means the shareholders won't be deciding compensation. That means the shareholders, 51% social equity applicants, won't be deciding whether the company sells or not, what the asking price is, what the payout structure is.
So you don't have control over your product,
Right.
basically.
You don't have control over any of the decision making in the company if they subvert that. It's kind of a perversion. A lot of worker co-ops have one worker, one vote, one share. The accounting firm I work at is a type of worker co-op. We're a woman-founded, woman-majority worker co-op. But we don't do one worker, one share, one vote. We do one worker, one share, one vote per year worked, because we're all about kind of paying homage to sweat equity and seniority. This just completely throws that out the window.
How do you avoid it?
Gonna get to that. It's pretty much downside. It's pretty like the second is increasing the ownership shares of the non-social equity applicants under the claim of it being sweat equity for design or consulting or management services, without giving any corresponding increase in shares year over year, quarter over quarter, month over month to the actual workers and the people who are there. And the third is the buyout clause, the buy-sell clause, or the ownership agreement clause, and that's where they will guarantee a floor in the event of the sale of the company for like $250,000. And I don't know about y'all, but I could use a guaranteed floor for $250,000 for my company sells. But they put that in there, and they put a corresponding clause for a maximum buyout of $500,000, which like, that's pretty good too. If I'm gonna sell my company and I'm guaranteed to make $250,000 or $500,000, I'm gonna be pretty good for the rest of my life, right?
No.
These licenses are selling for tens of millions of dollars. So
It's
if
a
there's
80
a
million
51% ownership stake that's only being paid out at 1/100th of what the company is going for, I think you see.
So you're still getting
that
screwed.
A, you're completely screwed on what you're actually supposed to be due for the value of the company, and B, whoever buys that license no longer has any obligation to have
To you.
social equity applicants in it. Completely handing it over to, let's be honest, people that look like me.
It's an $80 million business.
So,
I want my money.
kind of rushing through all of that because I talk a little fast, a little nervous, but any questions about either of those first two buckets? Yeah.
I don't need the mic, bro. I talk about it. But I just had a share ACV, or cannabis.
Yes.
And I just sold it because we mostly down, you know what I'm saying? And I was trying to see, like, I mean, I bought it when it was down. But it's like, it go up like 2 cents and then it go down like $1, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like that's going backwards.
It's a waiting game, though.
I know it's a waiting game, but you know
When you need money.
you feel me?
But you right on the precipice, though.